my name is Chelsea. I use she/they pronouns. Welcome back to Pokopia. Today's video is going to be a quick one, just a couple tips and tricks that I have learned in Pokopia that I wish I knew sooner and that I would like to pass on to you. Let's start with habitats. In Pokopia, there are several different habitats that you use in order to get Pokemon to spawn into your world. Pokemon have different preferences of different habitats, but this only impacts their spawning requirements, not their living preferences. Take, for example, the Field of Flowers habitat. It has 3 possible Pokemon that can spawn. Vespiquen is common, Ivysaur is rare, and Venusaur is very rare. This is just an indication of how long it will take for a Pokemon to spawn in. This will also tell you if there are only certain times of day that Pokemon can spawn. For example, Hoot can only spawn at night, Pidgey can spawn any other time. And it will detail if they can only spawn within a certain area of the world. I'm currently on a Cloud Island, but normally Eevee can only spawn in Pallet Town, and it'll give you that information below their name. It'll say Area Pallet Town. What the game doesn't tell you is that these habitats are only needed in order for Pokemon to initially spawn in. They do not need to perpetually live there. So, for example, if you have a habitat that's more difficult to make, that has multiple Pokemon that can spawn there, something like Klinklang Iron Construction, once Steelix spawns in, you can move them into a different, more easy to construct habitat so that Machamp can spawn at the same one. I'll give you an example using the picturesque photo cutout board for Plusle and Minun. Once Plusle spawns in and has this habitat listed as their home, have them follow you. You can go anywhere and make any kind of habitat, and then tell Plusle to move in. Now Plusle will live here, and that frees up the habitat in order to now spawn in Minun. This is really useful early game when you have not a lot of resources and there's expensive furniture that you don't have multiples of. This tech is especially useful for the fishing spots that have multiple Pokemon that spawn, but fishing rods are very hard to come by, especially early on. Speaking of the cutout board, there are only 8 total habitats in the game that take elevation into account. So elevation is not used for too much in this game, and it's also not very well explained. But if you're in a high up area in one of your towns, you'll see these lines of wind blowing across your screen. That means that you are at a high elevation. The only things that affects are the windmill source of power, which we'll get to in a minute, and these habitats. Through normal gameplay, the game will have you build this waterside dinghy as the only place that Dragonite can spawn. Not super useful in regular play, but if you're in a Cloud Island, this is the only way that you can get Dragonite. The photo cutout board, again, is the only place that you can get Plusle and Minun. I had initially built one of these, and it took me a while to realize that it needed a high up location, so I was not making any progress towards having them spawn. The Berry Feast campsite is just a faster way to spawn in Charizard. I believe all 3 of the Gen 1 starters have their own habitat that you can use to get them a little bit faster. Charizard can also spawn in your standard tall grass, but he is very rare, as opposed to the Berry Feast campsite where he is just rare. Other than those 3 specific ones, the other 5 are pretty simple. The Elevated Flower Bed can spawn Paris and Parasect, although they are also able to spawn in the Flower Garden, which does not require a high-up location. Elevated Tall Grass gets you Pidgey, Pidgeotto, Hoot, and Noctowl, all 4 of which do have other habitats that they can spawn in. Elevated Yellow Tall Grass gets you Wingull, Pelipper, and Crobat, again, all 3 of which have different locations that they can spawn. If you're looking for Crobat especially, you're better off going with the trash disposal site. Elevated Red Tall Grass gets you Murkrow, Chatot, and Honchkrow, again, all 3 of which do have other habitats they can spawn. Last but not least, Elevated Pink Tall Grass is the only habitat you can get Wattrel, Corvisquire, and Kilowattrel. Corviknight is very rare here, so you're better off building the Sewer Hole Inspection, which is the craziest name. So there are a few different ways to generate electricity in this game. The first is with a Pokemon that has the generate ability. Now, I don't have all the Pokemon yet, but here are most of them that have generate. You can have a Pokemon with the generate ability follow you, and when you look at an item that needs power, they'll take care of it, and they'll turn it on. And that'll last a while, and you can have them do it again later. But if you want to permanently power an item, there are more permanent ways to do that. We'll start with the windmill. The windmill generates perpetual electricity. It does not need any kind of input from you. It will do a different amount of electricity based on whether it is elevated or not. So, when a windmill is up high, so you can see the wind lines blowing across the screen, when it's up high like that, it can power up to 20 items. And when it's not, it can only power up to 10. If it's down at ground level and there's no wind blowing by, it powers a total of 10 items. The water wheel also generates electricity permanently. The only thing that it needs to produce power is water touching some part of it. As long as water is there, electricity is generated. There is no input needed from you. The furnace is the only one of these that requires input from the player. You have to place items inside to burn. Anything that's not grayed out here can be burned. So I can put in a stick and then burn it. And now, as long as that stick lasts, it is generating electricity. The downside here is that you do need to place items inside in order for it to generate, although it does have quite a bit of room for items, and they will last quite a long time if you just kind of set it and forget it. The upside to that is that it does power more items. It can power up to 30 items. Last but certainly not least, we have the mini generator. This one's great. It's small, it's portable, it doesn't require a building kit. You can pick it up just like any other piece of furniture. The trade-off with that is that it only powers up to 5 items. So it's great for small spaces that only have a few things that you need to power, and you can always place multiple of them. This is a late game item. It's unlocked at the Sparkling Skylands by reaching level 6 environment level, and then you can purchase the recipe at the PC. So great. Now what? We're generating all this electricity, but it's not powering our items. This is where our next set of items comes in, which is to transmit the power between the source and the output. We have a couple different items that can do this. The utility pole, the wireless power transmitter, and the wireless power transmitter switch. And I shouldn't have placed them in that configuration. The utility pole, the wireless power transmitter, and the wireless power transmitter switch. These two might look exactly the same. The only difference is that this one can be switched on and off. Now there are two major differences between these two things. This one, the utility pole, requires line of sight and is also 1 by 1 by 3 blocks tall. This one on the right, which I'm just going to call the wireless utility pole because that's essentially what it is just shorter and it can go through blocks. What I mean by go through blocks is this. You can see whenever you're placing one of these utility poles, whether it's wireless or not, it's going to have yellow lines towards whatever it can power and a black line towards where it's getting the power from. The wireless power transmitter will still have the black line, despite the fact that it doesn't need to be connected to it directly. If I try to connect this utility pole from the front of this windmill, I will get an error saying that there's something in the way. The reason is that the back of the windmill, that yellow light, is where the power is actually coming from. Same with the water wheel, and same with the furnace, this little yellow thing on top, and same with the generator. These yellow light bulbs are where the power originates from. So if I want to draw power from the windmill or the water wheel, I need to place my utility pole behind it. Then it will connect through line of sight between this utility pole and this utility pole. Wireless power transmitter does not have this same issue. It can connect to the windmill from the front because it's wireless. There's nothing in the way of the wires because there are no wires. It then takes that power from the windmill and transmits it to this street lamp. Now, the wireless power transmitter switch works exactly the same way with one key difference. You can press it to turn all of the power on and off. I'm sure there are more use cases for this that I don't understand, but basically if you wanted to have power going in two different directions, you could split it off and keep one half off and one half on, is the only thing that I can think of. So typically I don't tend to use those. Now, importantly, the wireless power transmitter and the utility pole both can power the same amount of items. There is no reason to use one over the other than aesthetics and what works for your build. I've gone ahead and placed some items out here so I can demonstrate what I was talking about earlier. This generator can only power 5 items, so it is sending power from it to this utility pole, which is then directing the power to these 5 items. If I place a 6th item, we have a blackout. You need more electricity to run everything that's connected. So just this generator is not enough to power these 6 items. As soon as I take one cash register away, the other 5 will turn back on. And those numbers again are 5 for the generator, 30 for the furnace, 20 for the water wheel, 20 for the windmill if it's at a high elevation with wind, and 10 if it's at ground level. In addition to that, each utility pole, whether it's wireless or not, can connect up to 20 items. If you try to put 21, it's too many. So those yellow connections, you can have up to 20 before you have to place a second utility pole. The utility pole itself does not count as an item, it is just transmitting the power, it's not actually being powered itself. I'll leave a link below to a great deeper dive into how electricity works in this game. It's also where I got most of this information. It's by Lex Play, and the link will be in the description. Alright, moving on, I wanted to talk about the environment and the comfort level of your Pokemon. So at the PC, you can check your environment level by hitting minus. On my Cloud Island here, I'm at level 10, which is the highest it can go. This is determined by the comfort level of all of your different Pokemon. When your Pokemon is in their habitat, you can ask them how their comfort level is, and they'll name something that you can do in order to increase their happiness. For example, earlier when we moved Plusle and Minun into a different environment that they're not as happy with, now they're down here in the iffy category, but we can still improve that by speaking to them and asking them what they would like to be better. Give you an example over here with Volbeat. So you can ask a Pokemon, how's your comfort level? They'll say, I want something, and it'll say a toy or a decoration. When you're in your inventory, you can press minus to see item information, and each item will have a description. For example, the ship's wheel is a toy. So if we take a toy and we place it near Volbeat's home, you can click in the right stick in order to see the borders of where the items in their home will impact. So we place down a toy within this white border, and then if we talk to Volbeat again, we'll see that he likes the toy. Living here is pretty nice. Better than it was before. And you can see here that Volbeat has moved up. They have a little red arrow going up, showing that their comfort level has increased. This is not something that you need to worry too much about, but early game, if you're trying to improve your environment level, that's a good way to do it. The more Pokemon that you have, the higher your environment level is naturally going to be, because each Pokemon adds a little bit to it just by default, just by being there. The higher your environment level, the more you're able to afford from the shop. So, for example, at environment level 10, you're able to buy infinite amounts of white and black paint, which is something that I'll come back to. I'll talk more about paint in a little bit. Also, if you play on a Cloud Island like me, once you get to level 10, you can actually change the way that your Pokemon Center looks by buying one of these Pokemon Center kits. So that brings me neatly into my next point, which is about buildings and relocating, demolishing, and changing them. I went ahead and bought the Ridge Pokemon Center kit, and I'll demonstrate that in a moment. There's also a couple things that you need to know about, which is the relocation kit and the demolition kit. So the buildings that can be relocated or demolished, any of the prefabricated houses, the leaf dens, the sandstone, and city huts and houses, the Pokeball House, the Pokemart, the Windmill, Water Wheel, Furnace, Charging Station, Pikachu Fountain, and Moonlight Dance Statue can all be relocated or demolished with their respective kits. The Pokemon Center, of course, cannot be demolished. It can only be relocated, but this is true for any area in the game. So you can move the Pokemon Center in Withered Wasteland or in Pallet Town and put it in a place that is more to your liking. If the thing that you're demolishing or relocating has someone in it, for example, there's this sign outside the door that says someone's in here running a store, we need to get them out of here before we can change anything. So you're going to want to talk to them, say trade time's over, have them follow you out of the building. From here, now that there's no one in the building, we can place our kit. So I'll have them work on that. I should also mention, if you use Tinkmaster in any kind of a building project, it will greatly speed up the time that it takes. Normally a Pokemon Center would be done the next day. This one will only take me 1 hour. Now the demolition kit also has another use, which is you can bring it to the mysterious mural and you can demolish it. Now, it won't let me do this right now because you have to finish the mural first before you can delete it. But if your mural is in a bad spot where you want to remove it on your Cloud Island, that's how. You can also do this in your single player and remove it from Withered Wasteland. Once you've demolished it, your PC will sell the kit to rebuild it and you can put it somewhere else. As far as my research goes, I don't believe that the relocation kit is usable. It has to be the demolition kit from what I've read. Next thing I want to talk about is paint and berries. There are 6 different kinds of berries in this game: Leppa, Chesto, Rost, Aspir, Pecha, and Lum, which will give you red, blue, cyan, yellow, pink, and green paint, respectively. In addition to this, each berry has a secondary chance to give you a rare white or black paint. Leppa, Chesto, and Lum give white paint, where Rost, Aspir, and Pecha give black. And I'll put a graphic up on the screen right now to show you each of the different types of paint and each of the different types of berries and whether they give you white or black respectively when they're processed. This is a chance that the game calculates when you initially give a Pokemon a berry to turn into paint. In order to make paint, you're going to need a Pokemon that has the ability Crush. So here's all of those. There are some that I don't have, but I think you can guess who these 2 are. When you talk to one of these Pokemon, you're going to have the option to show them something. Say, look at this, and hand them a berry. Make me some paint. 1 berry will make 5 paint. You can give them up to 10 berries at a time. As soon as I hand Geodude these berries, the game is going to determine whether or not he is going to make white paint along with them. If I give him 10 berries, he will make 50 red paint, and he has a chance to also make 50 white paint. This is calculated now, not when you collect the paint. For example, if I were to give him 1 berry, he would make definitely 5 red paint and maybe 5 white paint. If I gave him 2 berries, he would make definitely 10 red paint and maybe 10 white paint. He would never make just 5 white paint. It would always be the same amount as the red paint that he's making. So if you're looking for a small amount of white or black paint, you're going to want to give 1 berry at a time. And if you're looking for it in bulk, you're going to want to give 10 at a time. Pokemon with the Crush ability will also use a community box in order to process paint. So if you drop off your berries in a box, Geodude or any other Pokemon with Crush will grab a berry out of the box, make the paint, and put the paint back in the box. This still lets them make white and black paint, so you can do this while AFK and just have them process it. Now, like I mentioned before, once you reach environment level 10, white and black paint is sold infinitely at the PC. So this is not as important late game, but early game, if you are looking for white or black paint, this is how you get it. For this last tip, we're heading to my favorite cloud island besides my own, 6DXLPD6F. The game has several different color variations of each of the different biomes of flowers, bushes, each of the fancy flowers, and of course the 6 different flavors of berry trees. Now everyone will have access to a base of the same things. You'll have Lepa berries, and then it will randomly pick one of these other berries to be your default berry tree. Think of it kind of like the town fruit in Animal Crossing. Now there are points in the single-player campaign where each of these different saplings will be made available to you, but the best tip to know is that these can be 3D printed. You can take a picture of these trees and then 3D print them to make more of them if they're not your native tree. The same is true for each of the different colors of flowers and bushes. So for example, the pink wasteland flower is the default, and then the game will select one of these other 4 colors to be your variation. I got pink and red in my world. That's true for my Withered Wasteland and for my Cloud Island, and for any Dream Islands that I go to. Same with the mountain flowers. Everyone will have blue, and then you'll have one of these 4. I ended up with red. Same with these bushes. You'll have the pink bush by default, and then I believe I ended up with purple. I would have to go back and look. These beautiful flowers, you'll have red by default, and then I ended up with, I believe, white. These work the exact same way as the berry trees, where they can be 3D printed. It is expensive to 3D print them, but if there is a color that you need that you do not have by default in your world, there's only a couple of ways to get them. The first would be to take a picture and 3D print them, or the second would be to get lucky and get them as a gift from Pokemon, or either when they randomly come up to you and say, I have something for you, or when you play one of their games. It is a lot easier to just 3D print them. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you spending your time with me. You don't have to do that, and it does mean a lot. Let me know if these tips were helpful to you, and leave your own tips in the comments if you have anything that you think I missed, or that you think other people would want to know. That's going to do it for me today. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will catch you in the next video.